My detail choice of games. My library. Back but details. First. In the Heroes Rise button series. Heroes Rise. The Prodigy. Heading by Zachary Sergey button. Remove favorite. 4 points. Star 2000. Ratings. Play now button. In progress. Details. Back. Show stat. Chapter 3. Show stats button. Show stat. Back but stat. Codename. Conduit. Fame. 31%. Justice. 69. Lawless. 31%. Lawful. 69%. Offensive. 57%. Defensive. 43%. Soloist. 43%. Team player. 57%. Power. 100. Health. 100. Money. 2095. Legend. 1. Your relationships. Family. 90%. Victon. 10%. Unknown. 50%. Unknown. 50%. Unknown. 50%. View legend guide button. Back button. Back button. Show chapter 3. The lowercase. You free fall to the streets below, dropping 10 stories before you tense your muscles and feel your flight powers kick in. Most people think flying feels like floating, but you know it really feels more like swimming. It takes a lot of muscle control and endurance. Luckily, you've been training for years, the way a runner trains for a marathon, so you can fly today without much trouble. You pull upward, feeling gravity work with you instead of against you. You stretch out your arms and climb up into the sky, the exertion causing a familiar tingling in your abs. You allow yourself one joyride up into a bank of clouds before swooping back down toward the cover of the skyline. Having your hero license makes flying legal, but you still don't need to start your career with an unregistered flying ticket. So you cruise low against the buildings toward the heart of the city, toward downtown MC. Every time you use your powers, your power level lowers. Different power uses exert different costs. For example, this kind of normal flying only lowers your power by 2. However, thanks to the flying upgrade on your costume, regular travel flying doesn't exert any power at all. It's important to keep an eye on your power level as you begin to enter battles, but right now you're strong at 100. Next button. Your flight from the eastern fringes takes you across the quaint brownstones of Rhine Hill and through Valor Park. Pulling in closer to the high-end metal giants that mark downtown, you land on a ledge lined with silver statues of Greek gods and goddesses. One of the hardest parts of being a rookie hero is finding cases, a fact you're reminded of as a pinksy LED heroine bothers some teenagers in a nearby alley and 3 metal sentries thunder through the sky above you. Even if you are lucky enough to stumble upon a decent case, you'll still have to beat out dozens of other aspiring heroes who accomplish the mission and get the credit. So how are you going to find your very first legitimate hero opportunity? Patrol the streets, radio button, checked, 1 of 3. Search the hero classifies, radio button, unchecked, 2 of 3. Talk to my PFPP agent, Jenny U, radio button, search, patrol the streets, radio button, checked, search, talk to my next, button. Maybe it's a bit stereotypical, but you like to look at pounding the pavement as a true classic. You're about to dive off the roof and begin combing the streets. Until you think of all the heroes you just saw trying the exact same thing. You have to ask yourself, is this really the best use of your time? You're looking, so you settle back until you think of all the heroes you just saw trying the exact same thing. You have to ask yourself, is this really the best use of your time? You're looking to rise as fast as possible, which means you want to do more than stop petty robberies and assaults. You want a case that's going to make a splash. So you settle back on the ledge, realizing you're going to have to start thinking bigger if you're ever going to make it in this industry. Patrol the streets, dim, search the hero classifieds, radio button, checked, 2 of 3. Talk to my PFPP agent, Jenny U, radio button, unchecked, next, button. When your life was turned upside down by your parents' imprisonment, one of the only people you could trust was the PFPP agent assigned to your case, Jenny U. Even though Jenny doesn't have powers of her own, she loves power hero stuff just as much as you do. So when you had no one else to talk to, you and Jenny would spend hours gushing about all of your favorite heroes, games, and comics. Of course, Jenny is the first person you want to call to tell about your heroic start, especially since she'll have advice on how to find a good first case. You hold your arm up and press a button on your metal wristband. Hop and open a panel to reveal your embedded meat chip. You can't imagine what life was like before humans merged with their tablets. Fern does so much for you. Hell, most days she even feels like your best friend. You also have your meat chip to thank for your powers, since the current accepted powered origin theory is that advanced technology paved the way for powered abilities. This theory suggests that once humans integrated with tablet technology, these tablets began to cover many basic functions, like memory and navigation. For example, once adjusted to this technological enhancement, the human body was able to evolve and unlock new potential in the form of powered abilities. These powers then began to solve pressing global problems, since humans could now do things like generate natural resources and survive in harsher conditions. It seems that the early 21st century technological boom laid the groundwork for the 22nd century power boom, which has once again caused the world to change in startling and exciting ways. However, despite the meat chip's ceaseless wonders, you currently just need it to make a call. Fernan, you say, call Jenny U. Of course, dear, meat chip Fernan echoes in your ear. Please ask Jenny how she's doing for me. Next, button. Jenny picks up right away, her face appearing holographically in front of you. Since she's such a geek, you tend to forget how pretty Jenny is. She's half Korean, half British. She always wears her hair in a tight ponytail and never applies a bit of makeup, causing her to appear sleek and no nonsense at all times. Actually, you sometimes think Jenny is super hot. Sadly, she also happens to be super gay. Right now, Jenny looks a bit surprised to see you, probably because she has never seen your conduit costume before. I assume this means your grandma gave you your license? Jenny says. Traces of her British accent still present despite years of living in Millennia City. You mean you knew grandma had my license and you didn't tell me? You ask, mildly offended. Please. Your grandmother would have murdered me if I had ruined her surprise. Anyway, check your email for your birthday present, Jenny says, looking you over. And just so you know, that costume makes your waist look bloody enormous. That Jenny, such a charmer. Not missing a beat. You shoot back, says the girl who channels a pony every day of her life. Radio button, checked. Please, that Jenny, says the girl who channels a pony every day of her life. Radio button, checked. One of three. We all can't be as gorgeous as you, Jenny. Radio button, checked. Oh, you're just jealous. Radio, next, button. Flattery will get you absolutely everywhere, Steven. Now, I have to run but I've got another tip for you. A fingertip, if you will, Jenny says, chuckling to herself. Wait, what does that? Before you can finish, Jenny hangs up on you, one of her favorite things to do. Knowing that calling her back would be useless, you ask me Chip Vernon to open your email instead. And sure enough, Jenny has sent you quite a fantastic birthday present, a link to a hand-picked heroic case listing. Maybe she's not so intolerable after all. Next, button. You smile as you start to read, because the case has been sponsored by Rexford Chillers, MC's wealthiest playboy. His family had a major stake in the construction of the Big Sur fusion plant that now powers all of Western America. Turns out Rexford recently held a charity gala at his townhouse for the Powered Orphan Fund. Naturally, it was the must-attend event of the social season, especially since the theme was a Powered Masquerade Ball. The party was a smashing success, but the next day Rexford woke up to find one of his most prized possessions had been stolen. A party guest managed to get past the considerable security measures and steal a valuable Angelino artifact, the Gravitas, a mysterious rod rumored to have hidden powers. What little is known about the Gravitas makes it one of a kind, highly valuable and potentially dangerous. The police are looking into the theft, but Rexford wants the artifact back so badly that he has opened the case up to any powered hero, with a reward of $150,000. Next, button. You nearly choke. That's a lot of money. With such a large reward at stake, along with inevitable media coverage surrounding the high-profile case, you know the competition on this one is going to be fierce. You check the page views on the listing, and of course it has already been visited thousands of times. Still, you promised yourself you'd go big or go home. This would certainly qualify as going big. Though the real reason you want to take this case is because I really need that reward. Radio button, check. The press coverage will get my name out in the heroic world. Radio button, checked. The Gravitas really could hurt a lot of people if it falls into the wrong hands. Radio button, checked. Next, button. That artifact is a major public hazard, and it's your duty as a hero to keep the threat contained. Unfortunately, the only clue available on this case is a photo of the suspected thief who was an unnamed +1 guest at the gala. The photo features a man dressed in an expensive suit and wearing a mask themed after regalia, a very flamboyant hero/rock star. To match his emerald-encrusted mask, the thief's suit is lined with green piping and his fingertips are painted red. The photo isn't a whole lot to go on, so you start to wonder what kind of, but then a thought hits you so hard, you almost fall off of the ledge. Next, button. Jenny's fingertip. She's a genius. You think, knowing those fingertips may be your one shot at solving this case before anyone else. Do you remember what color the thief's fingertips were painted? Blue. Radio button, checked. Yellow. Radio button, red. Radio button, unchecked. 3 of 4. Checked. Purple. Next, button. Next, button. That's right. His fingertips were red. This is a very important detail that no one else is bound to know the significance behind. MC's government requires that large-scale building projects designate a portion of their budget to powered art spending. Since Grandma has a particularly green thumb, she sometimes cultivates unique flowers commissioned by emerging property owners. One of Grandma's biggest sales was a species of crossbred orchids that sing classic operas. It took Grandma years to achieve this horticultural miracle, but there was one flaw in the design. If you touch one of these orchids, it turns your fingertips a different color, depending on the opera it was trained to sing. Grandma sold these orchids exclusively to one downtown high-rise building. This means that if the thief's fingertips were painted red from Grandma's orchids, you know exactly where he lives, since only the penthouse apartment got the red Carmen orchids. That's the reason Jenny sent you this case listing. She also knows about the operatic orchid imprinting. She must have seen the thief's fingertips in the case photo and waited on the information, knowing you'd be legally licensed to investigate today, on your birthday. You leap off the roof in the direction of the red orchid penthouse, excitement coursing through your veins. This is a very big case. How do you feel about taking it on? This case is a bit much for my first night. This is the perfect case for me to start. This case is a bit much for my first night, but I'm going to try to rise to the occasion. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 3. This is the perfect case for me to start with. Radio button. This case is way too easy. I can't wait to move on to much bigger and badder stuff. Radio. This is the perfect case for me to start. Check. Next. But this case has a lot of money and publicity attached. And while other emerging heroes might not be ready to handle it on their first night out, you certainly are. Next. Button. The Orchid apartment is in central downtown, so your flight over will be super short. It's also good this thief can afford the penthouse because it will be pretty easy for you to access by flight. Your first priority is finding the gravitas, but catching the thief would be an added bonus. What's the best way to approach the entry? Hover near the windows to see if anyone is home first, then act accordingly. Radio. Break into the apartment to try to find the gravitas inside. Radio. Next. Button. Hover near the windows to see. Your first priority. Hover. Next. Button. As the ritzy high-rise comes into view, you can already see Grandma's red orchids on the balcony. You relax your muscles and slow your pace as you approach the building, which proves difficult as adrenaline pulses through your veins. You drop down along the wall, trying to keep out of sight. A building like this is bound to have anti-powered security measures. Hovering close to the penthouse's window, you peer into the living room to see if anyone is home. Your heart nearly stops when you come face to face with a man standing inside the apartment, inches away from the glass. Next. Button. It's definitely the thief from the case photo, right down to the red-stained fingertips. Currently, he looks far less regal and far more menacing, with overgrown stubble and long, greasy hair. You freeze, trying to decide what to do. Unfortunately, the thief thinks faster. He whips out a handgun and points it directly at you. How do you defend yourself? Throw up an energy shield. Power cost 8. Radio. Let out an energy pulse. Power cost 5. Next. Button. Let out an. Checked. Next. Panicked. You close your eyes and let out a low-level energy pulse. You hear the glass wall separating you from the thief shatter, and when you open your eyes, the thief's gun lies on the floor, melted beyond repair. A loud alarm begins to sound and the thief makes a run for it. Luckily, with the glass window now broken, you're able to fly right after him. Next. Button. As you pursue the thief, you expect him to run for the front door, which is why you're puzzled when he heads deeper into the lavishly decorated apartment. You race after him into the master bedroom suite, and as you do, your question about his escape plan is suddenly answered. The thief didn't head for the front door because he's got a teleportation unit in his bedroom. Next. Button. Personal teleportation units were supposed to be the next wave of the transportation future, but the automotive industry piled millions of dollars into research that revealed the potential cancer risks of atomic fission. So the government had to ban the sale of the units, putting everyone back into planes, trains, and automobiles. This thief doesn't seem to care about potential carcinogens, however, since he is already inside the unit and programming the machine's teleportation course. Without hesitation, you point your hands at the console and let an energy burst rip into the controls. The thief screams and jumps from the smoking unit. Furious, he looks up at you and snarls, "That was a very big mistake, rookie." You can barely hear him over the alarm blaring in your ears. You know it's only going to be minutes before the police show up, so you've got to act fast. The thief seems to be thinking the same thing as he jumps to his feet and pulls something out of his belt. What's your best move? Stun the thief with a focused energy blast. Power cost 5. Fly and physically attack the thief before he can act. Power cost 3. Radio. Use an energy crackle to disarm the thief. Power cost 2. Radio. Throw up an energy shield to discern the nature of the thief's weapon. Power cost 8. Let loose a powerful energy barrage. Who cares if the thief survives the attack? Power cost 15. Next. Button. Use an energy crackle to disarm the thief. Power cost 2. Radio button. Checked. Next. Button. You let out a small crackle of energy meant to knock a weapon from the thief's hand, but he unsheathes an oversized, red-hot sword that slices through your crackle with ease. Looks like he has a high-tech energy disruptor blade. The thief launches at you and takes a swipe with the blade, an attack you narrowly dodge. He has now come near enough that a close-range attack should take him down. What's your next move? A couple of well-placed punches should do the trick. Power cost 3. Radio. A short-range energy pulse will take him out. Power cost 5. Next. Button. Next. Button. Knowing the thief's blade can block your energy attacks, you shift to a physical attack. Smart move. You hold out your fists and hover a few feet off the ground, beginning to spin quickly, a move you like to call the Fist of Fury. You immediately barrage the thief with a series of spinning punches, knocking the sword out of his hand and sending him reeling across the room. Next. Button. Just as you have the thief disabled, you hear the wail of police sirens from the streets below. Slugger. You curse, knowing you're almost out of time. You still aren't sure if the gravitas is even here in the apartment. You consider your options. You could wait for the police, then work with them to locate the gravitas. This would garner some goodwill with the MCPD, but it also might compromise your access to Schiller's reward. Or you could interrogate the thief before the police arrive and try to find the gravitas on your own, taking all the reward and credit for yourself. But if you do this, you'd definitely be pissing off the MCPD. What are you going to do? Better decide quickly. Screw the police. I'm going to handle this on my own. Radio button. Checked. Working with the police is the best way to solve this case and start off my career. Radio button. Checked. Next button. 15 minutes later, you stand outside the building, watching as the police haul the thief into the back of a detainment van. Next to you stands Officer Sanders, a grizzly veteran with dark, almost black skin that contrasts with his grayish-white hair. He has a long scar where his left eyebrow should be, making his face appear lopsided, considering his right eyebrow is bushy and white. His age look doesn't seem to go with the technologically upgraded MCPD uniform that's now standard issue, but he still has quite the commanding presence. You've just told Officer Sanders everything about finding the thief. Well, not everything. You said you figured out the fingertip lead with an anonymous tip, since no one needs to know about your connections to Grandma and Jenny, nor that you're not necessarily a brilliant detective just yet. Turns out the thief's a gun-for-hire name tracker, Officer Sanders says in a low, gravelly voice. He's got the power to discover the location of any person or object on the planet, so finding and stealing things is his specialty. You just helped us solve about 30 open theft cases. Anything to help, sir, you say, laying it on a bit thick. So are you sure he's the one who stole the gravitas? Listen, Officer Sanders says, leaning in to whisper. I'm technically not supposed to say anything to you, but you found this guy when no one else could, so we owe you one. If anyone asks, you figure this next part out on your own. Got it? Got it. You nod, already thinking that it was a good move to work with the police. Tracker says he was hired by Smither to steal the gravitas, Officer Sanders says, his remaining eyebrow crinkling with severity. You freeze because you know exactly who Smither is, and learning that he's involved is not good news. Next button. We've already got officers en route to Smithar's headquarters, but my guess is if you leave now, you can get there first. I'll tell my guys you're a friendly face, just don't get in their way. I won't, you say, reaching to shake Officer Sanders' hand. Thank you, sir. You sure you can handle this? I don't need another dead rookie on my conscience. Don't worry, you'll be seeing a whole lot more of me. You promise. The name is Conduit, by the way. Well, good luck, Conduit, Officer Sanders says. Against Smither, you're sure as hell gonna need it. Next chapter, Smither, Vice and Everything Splice button. Chapter 4, SMYTHER, Vice and Everything Splice. Pulling up into the sky, you shudder as you think about Smither. He owns 4 legitimate businesses in the static lane section of the Eastern Fringes, but everyone knows these are fronts used to launder money from his prostitution, drug, and illegal firearms operations. Even worse, Smither fancies himself the boss of an elite-powered mob. All of his business generals form an exclusive club called the Splice Circle. Aside from possessing dangerous powered abilities, the Splice Circle generals all indulge in their splicing poison of choice, whether it be animal-human hybridization, hypersteroid usage, or gene-deep cosmetic alteration. Not having time to fiddle with your meat chip for a search while flying, you decide to test the new Thought Command function. The first wave of Thought Command technology has just been released, but it hasn't replaced voice commands entirely yet, since the software is rumored to still be rather buggy. Clearing your mind and focusing on your meat chip, you think, Fernan, search current Splice Circle roster. Within seconds, you get a response from Meat Chip Fernan. Oh no, it appears you need to upgrade your internet package to conduct that search. Next button. There used to be a time when the internet was available for one base price, but ever since the government allowed internet providers to bundle packages for speed and website access during the Greater Depression, you've been operating out of the lowest cost bundle. Actually, your entire meat chip is operating at similarly low level. The potential functions of the meat chip are endless, if you have the money to pay for the services. Meat chips can do everything from multiple perspective surveillance to acquisition of downloadable skills, but that all requires high-level processing chips and additional fees. Poor Fernan could also have dozens of different outfits and personality dimensions if you had more money for upgrades. Welcome to the 22nd century, where class status is determined primarily by tablet functionality. And unfortunately for you, it looks like it's time for an internet upgrade, which is going to cost you. Authorize upgrade and execute search. You think, trying to focus the command through the cloud of frustration in your head, it won't be long before they start charging for air per breath. You think. Immediately, several holographic web images flash before your eyes. One is a chart listing the Splice Circle's current roster, another is a review of air humidifiers, and the last is a list of services for anger management. Understanding why many reviewers have bashed the meat chip thought command function for acting glitchy, you try to focus on the roster listing. The Splice Circle rumored roster, boss, Smither, security general, Boulder. Which roster do you want to read next? Business generals, radio button, checked. 1 of 2. Crime generals, radio button, unchecked. Business general, checked. Next, but Shed Club, Madam Vice status. The Rival Bar, Kirkpatrick, Counselor, Fetish Sinten, Juan de W, Aces High Casino, 3rd degree. Notes. Kirkpatrick is the latest addition to the circle, brought in to run Smithar's newest establishment, the Rival Bar. Kirkpatrick also serves as Smithar's replacement counselor, after the remains of Smithar's last counselor were found split between Westport and Valor Park. Madam Vice and Smither have recently ended their multi-year affair on a sour note, causing many to wonder how long Vice will hold her position within the circle. Do you want to read about the crime generals, too? Yes. I want to be as well prepared as possible. Radio button. No, I need to get to the scene as fast as possible. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 2. Checked. Next button. Satisfied with your knowledge of the splice circle, you prepare to take off towards Static Lane, until you notice a bright flash coming from one of the surrounding rooftops. Focusing on the source, you see it's a reporter, obviously working overtime to break the first scoop on this story. You really need to find Smither quickly. Besides, you promised yourself you'd focus on upholding justice first and foremost. So you don't have time for something as trite as an interview. Yes. I'll always have time for the press. Dimmed. Radio button. Unchecked. 1 of 2. No. Fulfilling my duty as a hero is way more important than talking to the press. Radio button. Checked. Next. But you fly into the sky, knowing you don't have a single second to waste. But as you pull up into a bank of clouds, your me-chip sends you a web alert. Sorry to be a bother, dear, me-chip Fernan says. But it appears your hero press alert has picked something up. You forgot you had even set the press alert, but it's a good thing you did. Whether you want the attention or not, you should be aware of what's being said about you in the press. Though you didn't think it would start happening quite this quickly. The alert takes you to Hero Press blog, where you find a photo of yourself, taken literally seconds ago, flying away from Trackar's penthouse. The caption reads, Unknown newcomer cracks first lead in Gravitas case, more to come. Photo capture by Sonia Chala. Even though getting press isn't your priority, it's not the worst thing in the world for people to start recognizing you. Despite yourself, you tell Fernan to archive the article. It is the first official press-related legend boost of your career, after all. Next button. Legend prize unlocked. As a bonus for achieving one of the highest possible legend levels at this point, 8, your health level has been restored and raised to 110. Good work, hero. Next button. You take off high across the sky at top speed, knowing you need to get to Static Lane before the police do, or before another hero encroaching on your case does. As you fly, you consider how any powered heroes stupid enough to take on the Splice Circle in the past have always ended up dead. The only notable exception has been Static, the self-proclaimed champion of the Eastern Fringes, named after the Fringes' most crime-clogged neighborhood, Static Lane. While most heroes concentrate on more glamorous and less dangerous heroing outside of the Fringes, Static has done good work cleaning up some of the Splice Circle's mess. However, no one has seen Static in months, a troubling mystery that has gone unsolved. Worst of all, Smither and the Splice Circle are responsible for funding the rival any-gang activity in the Fringes, using the gangs as a recruitment base to pipeline employees into the various branches of the organization. The any-gangs are constantly vying for top billing with the Circle, and a gang war has been brewing for months, as evidenced by the fight you broke up earlier today. Without a doubt, Smither is responsible for making life in the Eastern Fringes highly hazardous. Knowing that he is involved with the Gravitas theft hits close to home, but you want to take on this case mostly because it will serve as a blow to the Splice Circle's criminal practices and further disorganize any gang activity in the Fringes. Radio button. Checked. Being the hero that takes down Smither will make me famous. Radio button. More than anything, it's just going to be fun. Radio button. Next button. Smither has remained untouchable thanks to a team of high-priced lawyers and some corrupt contacts within the MC government. So catching him with the Gravitas could be a rare, illegal thread capable of unraveling the entire Splice Circle organization. And doing so would definitely improve life in your hometown quite a bit. You can't think of a more worthwhile heroic pursuit. However, as you begin to breathe a bit heavier from the exertion of flying so fast, you think about how advanced this case could prove to be. Smither is no joke. He and his crew will kill you in 1,000 different ways, without hesitation. Perhaps this might be a bit more than you can handle on your first night out. Then you remind yourself that you were born for major league cases like this. Moving forward, no matter how successful you become, this kind of fear and doubt are going to be a part of your career at every level. In fact, the pressure to stay afloat is only going to get worse, so you'd better learn to cope with it now. Next button. After a super fast flight back to the Fringes, you land on a roof across the street from Smithar's club, Shed, your favorite hero tip-off blog. Just the tip says it's rumored that Smither has his secret base of operations hidden somewhere in Shed, since he was once romantically linked to Madam Vice, Shed's owner. Madam Vice has the power to seduce people into doing her bidding, and you've also read that, ever since being unceremoniously dumped by Smither, she might have aspirations to take over his head honcho role. While this is a tidbit you may be able to use to your advantage if things get nasty inside, right now you need to discover the location of Smithar's hidden headquarters within Shed. What's the fastest way to do so? Go inside posing as a customer and try to discreetly get some intel. Radio button. Break into the back and search the premises. Break into the back and burst in, powers blazing, and demand to see Smither. Radio. Next button. Break into the back and search the premises without being seen. Radio button. Next button. Show stats. Show stat. Back button. Achieve. Codename. Conduit. Fame. 18. Justice. 82. Lawless. 20. Lawful. 7. Offensive. 15. Defensive. Soloist. 30. Team player. 60. Power. 80. Health. 100 money, 1990 legend, 8. Your relationships, fam, back button, back. While this is a tidbit, you may go inside posing as a customer and try to check, break into the back and burst in, pout. Next button. You float down to the street and walk up to the front door, which is blocked by two very large bouncers. From the massive horns protruding from their foreheads, you gather they're both part gene-spliced rhinoceros, not really dudes you have time to mess with. So the rhino, you float down to the street and walk up to the front door, which is blocked by two very large bouncers. From the massive horns protruding from their foreheads, you gather they're both part gene-spliced rhinoceros, not really dudes you have time to mess with. So you pull out your ID and hand it to one of them, hoping it will be that easy to get in. The rhino bouncer looks you over from head to toe, which makes sense since you completely forgot that you're wearing your conduit costume. Your sure shed doesn't want hero type snooping around, so you clench your fists, ready for a fight. But the rhino bouncer just hands your ID back and opens the door, $20 cover. And absolutely no power use allowed inside, he says in a thundering voice. Got it? You nod, thankful to not have to crack any rhino skulls at this particular moment. Next button. Paying the cover and stepping inside, you stop. It's very dark and all you can make out at first are iridescent glows coming from all around. But when your eyes do adjust, you realize that those glows are actually figures dancing. Each one's skin glows in a different neon bright color as they move across various stages. You take a second to stare at the mesmerizing colors but pull yourself away, that's not what you're here for. You walk toward the bar to see what you can learn, but before you get there, you spot a deep red light coming from somewhere in the back of the place. You look at the light and suddenly one step follows another. Fuzz feels nice moving back there stands. Next button. Madame Vice. So pretty, you think. So pretty with the blood red eyes. Tell me, rude thing, she says, her voice oozing, what on earth brings you to my dark corner of the world? You want to tell her everything. Her with her flowing, auburn hair, wrapped in that tight, red leather. Her body impossibly curved with plastic enhancements. Her perfect chest spilling out of that corset. Her full lips wet. You want her to trust you more than anything. You want to touch. You want to tell. She's so pretty. Just tell. I'm here to, but as the words leave your lips, one thought breaks through the rest. Madame Vice has hypno seduction powers, which must be why you can't seem to think straight. As you feel the slightest bit of control creep back, you decide that you'd better not waste the opportunity. How are you going to handle Madame Vice? Tip her off about the police? Perhaps she'll choose to save herself if I do. Radio button. Tip her off about the police. Attack her while I have the chance. Power cost. Next button. Attack her while I have the chance. Power cost 5. Attack. Next button. As you feel the slight tip. Next button. With all your willpower, you raise your hands to blast Madame Vice point blank. You fire off a shot and the gill threatens to overwhelm you. As Madame Vice dodges your blast and breaks her concentration, you immediately feel your senses return to normal. But before you can totally regain your bearings, Madame Vice pulls out a long whip and lashes you with it. The whip must be charged with some kind of electric current because a shock sends you reeling across the room. You hit the ground hard, making sure to keep your eyes closed since you don't need Madame Vice hypno seducing you again. You let out a quick energy pulse, hoping that will do the trick. Next button. When you open your eyes, you see Madame Vice sprawled across the floor, unconscious. You experience an intense rush of sadness but push the emotions from your brain, knowing it's just the after effects of Madame Vice's powers. You stand and walk over to her, seeing that there's something attached to the end of her whip. Curious, you reach down and grab it. You examine the gold tip of the whip and can't believe your eyes. The gold mechanism is a lock, a wildly expensive and wildly illegal security measure that grants teleportation entrance into doorless rooms. The only way into Smithar's secret headquarters must be through one of these locks, which you imagine only his splice generals carry. Since the locks take the form of tokens unique to each owner and only respond to their brain waves, it's useless to you without Madame Vice. Though there is one trick you might try. But before you can give it a shot, you feel a tap on your shoulder. Next button. You raise your fists and spin around, freezing the moment you do. You instantly recognize the face smirking back at you. It belongs to Jerry, another aspiring hero. He stands with his arms crossed, the wind from the open door flaring his black and white costume, which was made to look like a sleeker version of Judge's robes. Which makes total sense because Jerry's real name is Aaron Victon. He's the son of Judge Victon, who is now better known as the long-standing mayor of Millennium City. And the man who sentenced your parents to their lifelong prison exile. Next button. Jerry has the power to see through the eyes of any 12 nearby people at once, hence the code name. He's become a C-list hero, thanks mostly to his father's position. Anything Jerry has gotten, he has bullied or bribed out of people thanks to his last name, or charmed them with his good looks and social status. If you'd had the advantages Jerry had, you'd already be MC's #1 hero and you know it. You really are inclined to hate Jerry for just about every reason under the sun, but you have to be careful not to give away your real identity. The last thing you want is for the Victon family to know the connection between your conduit, Sterling, and Apple identities. Well, you're new, Aren't you? Jerry says, looking you over from head to toe like a piece of meat. What's your name, stud? Your skin crawls under Jerry's gaze and you force yourself not to consider what's running through his mind. Jerry is a conventionally attractive blonde guy, so you're sure he does quite well for himself. And obviously, Jerry liked what he sees. But you're definitely not into guys. And even if you were, you wouldn't touch Jerry with a 10-foot pole. Still, he doesn't necessarily have to know that yet. How do you want to play this? Flirt with Jerry to get my way. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 3. Treat Jerry like the scum he really is. Radio button. Unchecked. Jerry doesn't deserve to occupy even 1 second of my time. Radio button. Unchecked. 3 of 3. Next button. Jerry doesn't. Next, but I've got to go. I've got to go. You practically growl, walking toward the exit. Yeah, about that, Jerry says, blocking your path. You're cute and all, but you don't know how things work yet. I just got a call from Rexford Chillers himself. The police told him they have a lead on his missing gravitas. He's a dear friend of my father's. You do know who Mayor Victon is, don't you? Jerry gets closer to you, way closer than you'd like. His breath smells like stale beer and you're pretty sure you can make out the beginnings of a cold sore on his lower lip. Tell me what you know now and I'll see it as a serious favor. And I'm the kind of guy you want to owe you, if you get my drift. Jerry puts his hand on your hip and you pull away, trying desperately to keep your cool. And if I don't? You ask through clenched teeth. Jerry's slick smile fades. Then let's just say that having the mayor of Millennia City as an enemy isn't a really great thing for any aspiring hero, is it? Next button. There's no way in hell you're backing down from this case, no matter what Jerry threatens you with. Still, you do need to find a way to get him off of your tail. He could cause some serious trouble for you if he gets to the gravitas first. How do you want to deal with him? Knock Jerry out with a punch to the face. Radio button. Checked. Incapacitate Jerry with an energy barrage. Power cost 10. Radio. Next button. You launch your fist directly at Jerry's face and feel his perfect nose crunch under your knuckles. As Jerry hits the ground, you shake out your hand. That hurt like hell. Jerry will definitely want to pay you back for this, but as you look at him lying helplessly on the floor, you know it was totally worth it. Next button. It won't be long before Jerry wakes up, so you turn your attention back to the talak and you're one shot at accessing it. Sometimes, if you channel your energy power through electronics in just the right amount, it can jumpstart their functions. However, too much power fries electronics, a talent that comes in handy for some situations but not this one. Figuring it's worth a shot, you grasp the golden tip at the end of the whip and close your eyes. You allow a small wisp of energy to flow from your fingertips through the talak, hoping this will coax it into cooperating. Then out of nowhere, you feel a massive surge build in your forearms. Next button. No, you shout out loud, unable to stop a wave of white energy from bursting through your hands. When the light from your blast clears, you can see the charred remains of the whip in your hand, and the golden talak is completely shorted out. Despite years of training, your powers can sometimes act unpredictably. Though this was a rather inopportune time for a surge to flare up. What are you going to do now? But before you can even finish forming that thought, you feel your insides turn fluid. The room swirls around you and you stagger backward. Then you scream. Next chapter, Prodigies, button. Chapter 5, Prodigies. Control